Good morning, NBT Nation. Hopefully, everybody is out there having a great day today. Saturday morning, pop up live. Wanted to kind of start to unpack how does strategic learning and quality training actually move the business forwards? How do we actually impact those top line metrics? How do we actually move the dial on revenue, profit, talent retention, net promoter scores, those metrics that keep leaders up at night? How do all the how does it actually happen? Where's the magic? Because leaders want to know the ROI on their investment, and training is an investment for sure. It's an investment of time and money, maybe even headcount. And, am I, as a leader, it's fair to ask, am I going to get anything back on this? So, we're going to unpack all of that. How does all of this fit together to really impact the business at a deep level? And if you find this topic interesting, give me a thumbs up, leave me a note in chat here, subscribe to the channel. We can keep making great content like this. But when we start to look at how do you actually impact the business, really, there's no better way to explain it than a good old-fashioned three-set Venn diagram. And really, there's three core areas that have to play nice together. They have to fit together. And when they do, that's when you get the business impact. So let's start to kind of unpack each one of those right now. So kind of at the top of the heap is the organization's mission, vision, and values, the company's mission, vision, values. What is important to the business? What is the overarching strategy of the business? What are those core foundational ethos items of the organization? Everything flows from there. And I got to tell you, I make my living as a certified no boring trainer. You don't even bother with the training piece or the learning piece until that stuff's sorted out, because everything flows from the mission, vision, values of the organization. They're the left and right guardrails, the left and right limits for the organization to rally around, to really follow and align with. And everything flows from there. So it's important to make sure those are dialed in first. If they aren't, the rest of this can't happen, as I mentioned. So that's where you really want to pay attention, really dive in. The mission of the organization. What is it we're trying to do? What is it that the business is doing? Pretty straightforward stuff, right? But that is where your job skills training is going to come in later on. That is where your leadership training is going to come in later on. That is where all your compliance level, regulatory type training is going to come in later. Then you have the vision of the organization. Hey, here's the thing we do as a company, but here's our vision. Here's what really sets us apart in the marketplace. This is how we differentiate ourselves. This is our special sauce as an organization that really helps us to go do the mission. This is the vision. Well, all of that really then starts to flow down into your strategic learning plan, into the actual training itself. Because of the vision, let's say the vision is speed of execution. Well, then you can have all of your learning and training happening with this undercurrent of speed, right? We're learning this procedure on how to operate this machine today so that we can be faster. We're learning how to use this CRM package as salespeople so that we can help deliver solutions to our customers more quickly. We're learning how to manage our rounds as a healthcare professional so that we can provide more care to more patients more quickly and effectively. But the vision really guides everything that flows from that. So again, as a leader, having your vision really dialed in, understood. Does everybody understand it in the organization? Does everybody really kind of grasp it? Is it clearly defined in your mind? And then, of course, you have the values of the organization. What is the core ethos of the company? Mission, vision, values. Everything flows from there. So that's a really important set of the Venn diagram. The other important set is, of course, the strategic learning approach. And that's where you have a person in the organization who really owns the learning at a high level. You have a clear plan of how learning is used throughout the organization to help teammates grow, to help teammates develop, to help them know how to do their jobs, to do their jobs safely, effectively within regulatory requirements. But all of the training later on is mapped out in a strategic way, and it's aligned to the mission, vision, values of the organization. Strategic learning is where you have a clear roadmap through the life cycle of somebody's employment in your firm, from onboarding to job skills training to ongoing development, maybe some professional development, or maybe even some leadership training. But those various stepping stones of the life cycle of employment in your firm, you have a clear roadmap of what is the training progression for that individual. But all of those individual trainings tie back to the mission, vision, values of the organization. That strategic learning approach means that learning is lives high up in the organization. So it's attached at the C-suite level at minimum, preferably owned by a C-suite role, a chief learning officer, something like that. Well, you have a chief learning officer who, guess what, is very comfortable with, fluent in, and conversant in the mission, vision, values of your organization. And that individual is working with your other key leaders in the operational areas of your business, in the administrative areas of your business. They're really working with them to put together the learning plans, to really diagnose when training needs to happen, when training is an appropriate response to business problems, when and how is that training going to be delivered out to the teams. All of those pieces of the puzzle, that's falls into this set called strategic learning. And strategic learning is really about how is learning executed throughout the organization. It's the mechanics by which the training happens later on. Are we going to do a bunch of classroom stuff? Is it going to be e-learning? Is it going to be a mixture of both? When do we use micro learning? When do we use stand up meetings? When do we use classroom training? When do we use virtual training? And putting it all together in a very organized roadmap so that each individual in the organization has a clear development plan. And that plan is tied back to the mission, vision, values of the organization. So, just to give you a quick example, maybe you're at an automobile dealership, and part of your values and what part of your vision and really what sets you apart is honest deals, quick deals. We're going to give you the best price first. Come in for a simple buying experience. You're not going to have a high pressure sales experience, et cetera, et cetera. Your strategic learning plan for all your salespeople, all your service people, your finance manager, even the person at the front desk is really oriented around teaching everybody how to do those things and really underscoring the importance of those things. And it really is neatly tied together and organized at a high level in the organization so it can flow down from there. Strategic learning is its own topic that we could do our own probably series of NBT lives on, but strategic learning is really where the execution of training starts to be magnified. The impact from training is a factor 10 impact on the organization, because instead of being disconnected bits of training that live on a team somewhere way down the org chart, and that training is sort of spread all over the organization. Maybe you got 15 different teams that all do training in one way or another. Everything is neatly organized, neatly owned, neatly shepherded. The standards for quality of training are upheld. The standards for when training should be used are upheld or defined. People's uh, successful completion of that training. There are criterion in place, all part of a strategic learning plan that all ties back into the mission, vision, values of the organization. Let me know if you're out there, NBT Nation. Leave me a comment, give me a thumbs up, and let me know what you're thinking about this so far. This idea of business impact is really the intersection of these three key areas. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of strategic learning because I've seen it work. And I've seen where organizations take learning seriously and they really tie it neatly together with their strategy and their overarching plans as a business. And all of a sudden, when that training happens, the impact is magnified by an incredible factor because it's not just this thing that lives over there. It's neatly integrated into the overarching mission, vision, values of the organization. Now, the third leg is, of course, the actual delivery, the mechanics of conducting the training in the organization. That's where no boring training happens. Now, no boring training. What we really focus in NBT, what we really focus in on is strategic learning and the mechanics of delivery. So don't be distracted by that name. NBT, we focus on strategic learning and the delivery of learning itself. But no boring training is an important element to this three-legged uh, triangle that produces a business impact. You can have really well defined mission, vision, values. You could have an owner of training. You could have a strategic learning plan that's all neatly organized. You could have all of the leaders in the organization bought in to training, really understanding where training can be used. You could have feedback loops so that you're making iterative improvements on your training and you're getting new ideas and you can have all those other two legs of the triangle in place. But if the delivery of the execution of the training is boring, stale, it's given by people who don't really understand how training works. Maybe they don't even have much interest in training, let alone a true passion for training. The rest, it all starts to fall apart because your learners, the participants, will start to view the training as tick the box, compliance based. I have to go to it. It's one more thing I got to do. It's not going to help me. It's a waste of my time. So you got to have a no boring training approach to the actual delivery of the training, whether that's in a classroom, virtually, a stand up meeting, an e learning module, a micro learning, an explainer video. They all have to have this no boring approach that we talk about here on the channel all the time. Otherwise, people get bored, they tune out, and all of that time and energy you invested in preparing the training to line up with the other two legs of the triangle, it becomes a gigantic waste of everybody's time. So having really interesting training, effective training, the kind of training where people are leaning in, they're paying attention, they're really understanding how this can help them. That's an important part of this three-legged triangle. All right, so we're 13 minutes in. I probably should start to discuss how all that leads to business impact. But first, a little bit more creator fuel. All right, MBT Nation, give me a thumbs up if you're finding this interesting and effective. So, how does this actually impact the business? Well, that's the intersection of the three legs. That's where you get excellence, alignment, and energy. So, excellence, a couple quick examples there. Because your job skills training, the actual training of how to conduct the job is talking about the mission, vision, values of the organization. It becomes far more real, relatable, and relevant to that individual. And real, relatable, and relevant are 50% of the things you need for you to have interesting and effective training. They're half of the 6 pillars of effective and interesting training that we talk about here on the channel. So just by doing this, what you see on the screen here, you're naturally producing trainings that are 50% of the way there of being interesting and effective. Because when they learn how to do the thing, They are understanding how doing the thing impacts at a deeper level to the organization, how it helps contribute to the greater effort of the organization. It's not just, hey, take an hour and learn the thing, but if you learn the thing, you can now be faster or more accurate or more effective, or you can save a lot of extra busy work, or it makes for a nicer experience for the customer, whatever. That is all neatly lined up with the mission, vision, values of the organization. It leads to excellence because strategic learning means you've mapped out a plan for the life cycle of employment. And Gen Z and millennials are crying out for ongoing development training. More than half have said they would stay in an organization longer if they were offered some sort of ongoing development training. I mean, that's a big number. So excellence can come from that strategic learning plan because you're gradually increasing the capabilities and capacities of your team. Because you have that long ongoing development plan, they can do more things and they can do the things better. And I think leaders like that. Last I checked. Alignment. Well, I mean, alignment should be pretty straightforward. That's all I've been talking about for the last 16 minutes. Mission, vision, value flows into your strategic learning plan, and your strategic learning plan flows into the actual mechanics of the training that are built on a foundation of no boring training. All of those pieces start to fit together. So again, as you're learning how to do the thing, it's aligning you back to the mission, vision, values of the organization. As you learn to do the thing, it's aligning you to what's important to the business. It's aligning you to what's going to help the business be more successful in the long run. It's not just information because let's go learn something new. It's information that's going to help the company thrive and in turn help you thrive. So alignment flows through all of this. And then let's talk a little bit about energy. Think back to a time you learned something that really lit your fire. It was really a passion for you. It was really something that you were deeply interested in. It could be at work, it could be in your private life, it could be a hobby, whatever. Think about the internal feeling you had when you learned the thing, the new hobby, you watched a YouTube video and figured out how to do something, whatever. Think about that feeling, that pep in your step, that energy. You stood a little taller. You a little bit more proud. You had that little bit of jolt of excitement. That's what good training does in your organization. That's what no boring training does. When you have a trainer who understands how people learn and the people actually start learning, that energy that is transferred to them is palatable. And when you have a certified no boring trainer who trains your teams, that energy is even more noticeable and lasts even longer. So every time there's a individual training session, you are putting little interjections of energy into your firm. Energy comes from the execution of mission, vision, values. Because you have a strategic learning plan, the training is really focused on how to execute the mission, vision, values. It's not just training because, well, we need something to do. It's training that really matters to the business. And then when the business starts doing better, that helps people to be more energetic and more excited. So all of these pieces start fitting together. So when you have a workforce, a team who is able to execute their job at a higher level, they're able to increase their capabilities and their capacity to do more things. When the things they do are aligned to the overall strategy of the business, and when they're excited because they learned something that helped them grow and develop and take on a new challenge and figure out a problem that they were struggling with, or just do something new and cool and kind of change things up, that that all flows throughout your organization. You end up with teammates who can do more, do it more effectively, do it with more energy, and do the things that actually impact what's important to the business. That that is how all three of these pieces fit together to really impact the top line metrics that keep leaders up at night. You want to increase the revenue in your company, start putting these pieces together. A strategic learning plan approach on built strategic learning approach with an execution through the framework of no boring training. If you really want to see your talent, those talented team members that work so hard, if you want to see them stay at your firm longer, feed them, build that taproot around which vision and mission, vision, values can grow and flourish, and watch how all of a sudden your team starts growing and developing. And as they start getting promoted and taking on new responsibilities and maybe making lateral moves inside the organization to contribute in new and interesting ways, and they start staying longer, think about how that can impact your business. Think about how a company where your team members really know and understand how to do their jobs and do their jobs in such a way that it lines up with your overall company brand and vision and feel and the customer experience. Think about how much happier your customers will be. And happy customers kind of make the world go round. I think leaders like happy customers. I don't know. I'll have to go check the books on that one, but I'm pretty sure they do. So, excellence, alignment, energy, capabilities, capacities, development, innovation, all of these things that we've been talking about really are what makes the impact on your business. But they start with the intersection of clearly defined mission, vision, values, a strategic learning approach, and then ultimately the training itself built on a foundation of no boring training concepts. Put all those pieces together and buddy, look out. You are really going to start moving things forwards. So there you have it. That's how all these pieces fit together. Now, NBT, I get asked a lot, well, what does NBT do? What is this no boring training thing? What's your offer? Those sorts of questions. Well, where we really come in is twofold. The strategic learning approach, that's where we can help leaders to set all that up, put those things into place, and of course, align that with your mission, vision, values. And then, of course, the no boring training, that's for the trainers. How do you go out and execute a really well delivered classroom based training, e learning, stand up, whatever? So we can help with both sides of the bottom part of this Venn diagram. You, as the leader, of course, you got to get the mission, vision, values kind of figured out. And then we put all that together. Presto changeo, you get the business impact. So there you have it, MBT Nation, Saturday morning live, just sort of popping up here. I really like these MBT lives. They allow me to kind of expand on a topic, kind of a free form sort of way. Let me know what you think. What is your instant response to this graphic? What are your thoughts about how all these pieces fit together? Leave me some comments leave me some comments, even if you watch this on the replay. And of course, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Thanks, MBT Nation, for popping in on a Saturday morning, at least Saturday morning here in the States. And I hope everybody has a great rest of their weekend.